First impressions count, not just in life but in video games too. The first hour or so of a game in my eyes is probably the most important since, well, if it sucks, you'll have a sour taste in your mouth for the rest of the game. If a game has a great beginning though, it's a different story. Take the original Super Mario Bros. For example. Even for those who had never played video games before, the first few seconds of Super Mario Bros. Are an incredibly straightforward tutorial to the game. Starting off as small Mario, the player is immediately forced to learn about jumping and enemies, because a Goomba starts close to Mario walking towards him. If Mario doesn't jump, he dies. Now the player knows to jump, and they can interact with the flashing blocks marked with question marks simply by jumping into them. The first one instantly gives the player a universally recognisable reward, a coin, so they try again. But this time the second box gives the player a mushroom, which they don't really know what to do with. But there's a pipe placed to the right, so even if the player doesn't immediately know to run into the mushroom, there's a good chance they'll collide with it when it comes back towards them. Then, bam, instant reward, Mario's bigger. And there you go, even your grandma now knows how to play Mario. Move, jump, avoid enemies, and get power-ups. And I'd argue that, as game tutorials go, Breath of the Wild is arguably really close to this level of simplicity and efficiency. From the perspective of someone who's never played the game before, perhaps never even played a Zelda game before, perhaps never even played a video game, we start off in the Shrine of Resurrection, no idea what's going on. So naturally we check the only interesting thing in the room, the glowing panel, which rewards us with the Sheikah Slate. A powerful technological artifact that acts as our map, telescope, key items and more. Some chests with basic clothing are then scattered in our path here, so that we'd have to blindly walk straight past them to miss them. And then we're out. A beautiful open shot of the massive world later, we're free to go absolutely anywhere on the Great Plateau, which is a massive secluded area. You're naturally guided down to the old man by how the camera moves, so most experienced gamers would go and talk to him, where they learn about food and are given a torch and near enough a woodcutter's axe. But it doesn't matter at all if you go to him or not. You can go whichever way you choose, and before the player wanders for too long and gets lost or bored without a goal, the Sheikah Slate calls Link and Zelda will tell you to follow your minimap to the glowing point. From there we download a map of the location, learn a little bit more of the story, and are told about the shrines by the old man. But obviously, until you feel like it, you don't even have to go to the first Resurrection Tower. This sort of game design where you're almost free to do whatever you want is so reminiscent of the first Zelda. You spawn in the middle of the first screen where there are 4 main ways to go. Up, left, right, or the option most players will take, the cave, where you're given the wooden sword. You can technically go all the way to the final boss without ever getting a sword. The game doesn't force you to do anything you don't want to, it just gives you little suggestions. The cave is obviously the most interesting thing on the screen here, so it's where most players will explore first, and are rewarded with the sword. And when Breath of the Wild does force you to use an option, it does in a way that makes you feel like you're still in control, like the game's first 4 shrines. Every time you enter one of the 4 main shrines in the Great Plateau, you can't progress from the first room immediately, so you're drawn to the big Sheikah construct, where you place your slate and are rewarded with a rune. Naturally, most players will then figure out you should use the item you've just been given, and they learn the basic use of magnesis, stasis, bombs or cryonis, which are the only ways to leave the first rooms in their respective shrines. And then for every shrine, as soon as you leave it, there's a little puzzle which shows the application of the rune in the overworld. Bomb the wall you couldn't get through before the bomb shrine, or use stasis or cryonis to get to chests outside of their shrines. My personal favourite though is this metal crate. It's just outside of the magnesis trial, so most players will naturally try out magnesis on it. This will illuminate all magnetic objects nearby, so that the player will see hidden chests in the nearby pond they couldn't otherwise. Then, of course, once you've finally beaten all 4 shrines, whether it's taken you the best part of an hour or nearer to 5, you're guided back to the Temple of Time, where the statue of Hylia is now glowing. Investigating it rewards the player with a stamina or hearts upgrade, teaching them the use of spirit orbs. Then you get the paraglider, a brilliant cutscene telling you more about the backstory, and you're off. Go die in whatever way fits you best in the brutal big world of Hyrule. Personally, I think the Great Plateau is my favourite beginning to a Zelda game, which is saying a lot, because I think the start of Ocarina of Time is absolutely amazing. Maybe I'll make a video on that too someday. What do you guys think about Breath of the Wild's tutorial? Let me know in the comments or on Twitter at Zeltik. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.